Good morning and welcome to Empathy Kids, brought to you by Missing Piece. Today we're going to read a story and have an art activity afterwards for both children and adults. Today's story is Old Turtle. It's written by Douglas Wood and the watercolors are by Cheng Ki Chi. Here we go. Old Turtle. Once, long, long ago, yet somehow not so very long, when all the animals and rocks and winds and waters and trees and birds and fish and all the beings of the world could speak and understand one another, there began an argument. It began softly at first, quiet as the first breeze that whispered, "He is a wind who is never still," quiet as the stone that answered, "He is a great rock that never moves," gentle as the mountain that rumbled, "God is a snowy peak high above the clouds." And the fish in the ocean that answered, "God is a swimmer in the dark blue depths of the sea." "No," said the star, "God is twinkling and shining far, far away." "No," replied the ant, "God is a sound and a smell and a feeling who is very, very close." "God," said the antelope, "is a runner, swift and free, who loves to leap and race with the wind." "She is a great tree," murmured the willow, "a part of the world, always growing and always giving." "You are wrong," argued the island. "God is separate and apart." "God is like the shining sun, far above all things," said the blue sky. "No, he is a river who flows through the very heart of things," thundered the waterfall. "She is a hunter," roared the lion. "God is gentle," chirped the robin. "He is powerful," growled the bear. And the argument grew louder and louder and louder until... "Stop!" A new voice spoke. It rumbled loudly like thunder, and it whispered softly like butterfly sneezes. The voice seemed to come from, why, it seemed to come from Old Turtle. Now, Old Turtle hardly ever had said anything, and certainly never argued about things like God. But now, Old Turtle began to speak. "God is indeed deep," she said to the fish in the sea, "and much higher than high." She told the mountains, "He is swift and free as the wind, and still and solid as a great rock." She said to the breezes and stones. "She is the life of the world," Turtle said to the willow. "Always close by, yet beyond the farthest twinkling light," she told the ant and the star. "God is gentle and powerful, above all things and within all things. God is all that we dream of and all that we seek, said Old Turtle. All that we come from and all that we can find. God is. Old Turtle had never said so much before. All the beings of the world were surprised and became very quiet. But Old Turtle had one more thing to say. There will soon be a new family of beings in the world, she said, and they will be strange and wonderful. They will be reminders of all that God is. They will come in many colors and shapes, with different faces and different ways of speaking. Their thoughts will soar to the stars, but their feet will walk the earth. They will possess many powers. They will be strong yet tender, a message of love from God to the earth, and a prayer from the earth back to God. And the people came. But the people forgot. They forgot that they were a message of love and a prayer from the earth, and they began to argue about who knew God and who did not, and where God was and was not, and whether God was or was not. And often the people misused their powers and hurt one another or killed one another, and they hurt the earth, until finally even the forests began to die, and the rivers, and the oceans, and the plants, and the animals, and the earth itself, because the people could not remember who they were or where God was, until one day there came a voice like the growling of thunder, but as soft as butterfly sneezes. Please stop. The voice seemed to come from the mountain, who rumbled, "Sometimes I see God swimming in the dark blue depths of the sea." And from the ocean, who sighed, "He is often among the snow-capped peaks, reflecting the sun." From the stone, who said, "I sometimes feel her breath as she blows by." And from the breeze, who whispered, "I feel his still presence as I dance among the rocks." And the star said, "God is very close." And the island said, "His love touches everything." And after a long, lonesome, and scary time, the people listened and began to hear and to see God in one another and in the beauty of all the earth. And Old Turtle smiled. And so did God. That is the story of Old Turtle. Thank you for listening. Now, in the comments section or below this video, you'll find a number of coloring pages that I found online that are reflective of some of the images that we've seen in Old Turtle. There's a lovely Old Turtle right there. Now, I've printed out a few, but I'll be posting a number of them. And I'd like to share with you a little technique one technique in a way to color these. That's a little different. Of course, use your crayons if you have them, or even if you have just a pen and pencil, making different marks in the different areas and shading would make a lovely picture as well. Or if you have markers, you can use those. You could potentially paint them with watercolor. But if you would like to paint and you have some brushes around, but you don't have any watercolors, and if you do have some Sharpies, Sharpie markers work the best for this technique. I have tried some other types of markers to a lesser degree. They work to a lesser degree. So I think a permanent marker works better for this. So I have a nice little jar here that we keep our Sharpies in that have all these colors. And I brought out some alcohol. Now I have 91% isopropyl alcohol. However, I think that the 70% would probably work just fine. And one thing to note, because we're working with alcohol, and actually with Sharpies, it's good to have ventilation. I have my windows open, I have a fan on right here. So it's always important to have ventilation when you're working with things that are smelly, like alcohol. And then I have an old cereal bag. So actually this is a cracker bag. I had some Annie's crackers in it, I think. So little things that the kids like. So I just washed it out, and there's this wonderful surface, wonderful surface to work with. So what I've done here is I have taken my markers, and I have colored a section of the plastic with the markers. Now I'm going to move my camera down a little bit so you can possibly see more of what I'm working on. So let's see if I can get this image here so you can kind of see the paper here. I will show you how I color. Here's the purple that I used for this. So you just color in a section on the plastic, fill it in. Fill it in on your plastic, and just like watercolors, this can dry on here and you can keep on using it again and again. Eventually, like you can see, I was working with some brown, it's thinned out. So you're going to want to let the alcohol dry off and then refill that area with the color that you're using. But like watercolors, you know, they can dry and you can reuse those. So too, you can do the same with these markers. So I'm putting a little gray in this section because I was using some gray. Now, I will show you why I'm doing, what is happening with all these. So I did take a little bowl, a small bowl, and I put some alcohol inside of it. And I have different brushes. So let's see, I have this brush and no, that's not the other brush. Here we go. Here's another brush. Here's another brush that I have. Now, if at home you only have kind of really scratchy brushes that come along with, say, watercolor sets, they're probably not going to work as well for this technique. This is a very soft brush, like a paintbrush. But if you don't happen to have any paint and would like to get more of a watercolor effect, you can use your Sharpies and a little alcohol. So all I do is I take my paintbrush and I'm going to dip it in my alcohol here. And let's see, I'm going to use some of this green. And you can see that it almost melts that color down into a liquid. And then when I have it's on my brush here. Whoop, there we go, sorry. Gotta find where the camera is on this here, and I'll see if I can angle this up and show you some techniques for painting. So here we go. Now, the alcohol does evaporate, so you have to go back and re-dip, but you can see here how it kind of spreads out. Now, if I get a puddle of alcohol on my page, that's okay. So that will evaporate and I'll be able to come back and paint in that area again. So if I'm just working on these little trees, I can fill them in with something like this. And I have another kind of bluish green over here that I can add in some shadows for. And I've started to do some of these. I added some green and some yellow, so I can put some shadowy with blue in here, or purple would make a nice shadow color as well. You can see in the mountains there, I've added some purple, right? And so you can get any level of detail that you'd like to in these trees, right? And one kind of technique for getting kind of a random shadowing pattern to make like a pine tree might is just kind of dabbing it here and there, this and that, all around like that. And it kind of gives some shadows that are coming forward. Now that being said, I'm going to put my brighter colors in the trees that are closer to me. And I'm going to use a little gray and a slight green. I'm going to mix my gray and green together for these colors that are for these trees that are in the background. Off in the distance, you're going to see less color. Whoops, there we go. Thank you for your patience and me getting the camera in the right place. But you can see here that those will push back into the background, right? And that gives you dimension with color. Brightness in the foreground, a little bit muted in the middle ground, and more neutral and shaded in the background, more faded. However, that being said, that leaves us for a really nice intro to doing a bright color for the mountains, so you can come in and, you know, really get a contrasting color. So I could have used orange here. I'm just choosing some purple. Often you'll see purple off in the mountains. Whoa, I'm sorry. There we go. Often you see purple off in the mountains, so here we go. Thank you for your patience with, again, my camera work. Here we go. So what I'd love for you to do is, no matter which way you color your pictures, or if you create your own image that that comes to mind after listening to Old Turtle, go ahead and share your art with us. You can put it right in the comments section underneath this video. And we'd be delighted to see what everyone comes up with and how they're inspired. And how they're inspired by the book and our story time together. So thank you so much. I will hold this up again just to give you a little demonstration. I hope you learned a new technique with using markers and alcohol today, a little more like watercolor. I could go back on top of this with marker as well and use line and more detail, but it really is a quick way to blend out an area. So it has some lovely watercolor effects there. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. Bye. Stay safe.